Welcome to Workforce 3.0. Today, I am very excited to welcome Jim Negron. He is the president of KOKOSING. He is also a member of the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. And starting July 1st, he'll be the vice chair of the board. So I'm very excited to have you here, Jim. Thank you for taking the time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lisa.
So, Jim, what I'd like to start off with is, could you tell us your own story? How did you get into construction?
Really good question. So it's a story that I love telling because the story is not about Jimmy. It's about hard work, perseverance, and other people helping you out. So that's really, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't work hard. I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't persevere, and I wouldn't be where I'm at if others didn't help me get here. So that's really what the story is. So hopefully those that listen to the story don't look at it as Jimmy Negron. They look at it as those three things that I think are really important. So, you know, I'm a Latin boy from Jamaica, Queens, that grew up in the inner city, and you know, when you grow up in the inner city, you know, you don't really see opportunity. You know, I would say that most kids that I grew up with didn't graduate from high school, and they would just, you know, had aspirations to do more. You know, and I had this desire to try to figure out how could I cut a path for myself. And I tested into a technical and vocational school that was actually, at the time, it was an all boys public vocational school, which was very unusual. And then the year I started, they actually went co-ed. So there was one girl in my class. But anyway, so I went to that school. And what was really cool was that school just started a pilot program with the unions, where you work a week and went to school a week. And it exposed me to things that I never would have been exposed to. And, you know, I got into the trades, and I got into, you know, a place where I was working hard and was recognized. I worked mostly worked in Lower Manhattan for a contractor in Lower Manhattan as a carpenter, and, you know, got into a leadership position, and, you know, decided to kind of take my tools and move to Central Ohio. After I became a journeyman and convinced my wife to do so, moved here, worked on a few projects as a carpenter foreman. Actually, I was nominated for a craftsmanship award on the St. Bridget project, which was really an honor to be one of the craftsmen recognized that year. But after that,
I think of that. Let me tell you, I think of that when I'm sitting at St. Bridget. So.
Oh yeah, I love that church. That's for sure. But you know, that opened up so many different opportunities for me. And then, you know, I came to work for the company that I was working as a subcontractor for, and then they were acquired by the family that owns KOKOSING. And, you know, that allowed my career to continue to grow. I got into field operations and then ran a small projects division for about a decade, and became a vice president, and then got into senior leadership, and then eventually became the president of the company, which, you know, it seems like it was an accelerated path, but when I look back, it was, you know, I've been with the company for 30 years. And when I said that earlier on, perseverance, there are a lot of times where, you know, you have challenges, but I was able to persevere. But anyway, so there were a lot of people that gave me opportunity, a lot of doors were opened, and then I had to work really hard to get here. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of how I got here. And I can tell you, my carpentry skills still come into play today. I was walking on job sites today, and I was helping one of our superintendents work through a detail that, if I wasn't a carpenter, I don't know that I would have been able to work through that detail with him as detail. So anyway, that's how I got here, Lisa. Thanks for asking.
So there's a lot of opportunities, though, in the trades and in KOKOSING, right?
That's correct.
What are some of the other trades that you need at KOKOSING?
Great. So we, you know, at CK, what we do is we do demolition, concrete work, structural steel, rough and finish carpentry, metal stud drywall, and we have our own mill shop. Those are trades that we need all the time. We're constantly in need of workforce development. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about the future, but today we would be able to hire, you know, as many workers as we can, and that we could bring on with different levels of skill and put them to work right away.
So it sounds like you have a dearth of enough workers right now.
Yes, I would say that that's correct.
Right. And what the profile of your average employee on the job, are we talking about a lot of men or older men, younger? What's kind of the profile?
Well, it's a plug for our company. So our professional staff, we have 41% of our engineers are women. And I only bring that up only because the profile of the construction company is changing rapidly, right? So the amount of women that are going to the science and math, the engineering schools are increasing. And that same transition is happening in the construction trades. The majority population is diminishing, and you're starting to see more, a much more diverse workforce. So, when I first moved to Ohio, it was definitely monolithic. It was kind of interesting coming from a very diverse place like New York City to coming to Ohio. I don't think I was completely prepared for that, but slowly but surely, this community is changing rapidly. So yes, we do have a lot of the majority population working for us, but we are increasingly seeing in the minority population, come to the construction industry, which is exciting because, I think diversity makes you stronger, whether it's diversity in race, religion, culture, life choices, sex, whatever it is. I think diversity makes us a better company. So while we're not completely there, we see that changing rapidly. And I think that the pace of that change is going to be, multiplied as the next few years go on.
I would agree. And I think that's a positive. So here in Central Ohio, we are trying to convince more women to go into the trades. And if you were trying to convince someone why going into the trades is a good route to go, what would you say are the 3 top reasons why going into the trades is a good choice?
Great. Well, it was kind of interesting. I love this business and I'm really biased. So I have a very strong opinion about it. I think that this is a very tough industry. Tough because it really requires you to work hard, work smart, and use your intellect and your brains, use your brawn all together. And we have such a diverse mixture of work when you're in commercial construction. Nothing's the same every day. It's always different. So there's no monotony to what we do, even if it's just you're a concrete worker, it's always different. It's always going to be different. So that as humans, we always want things to constantly change. In our business, it changes fairly rapidly, right? That's number one. Number two, the trades, I think trades are noble. Of course, I'm a self-taught person. There's nobility in the trades when you could do something with your hands. It's something that the industry, the trade teaches you, and it's something you'll never forget. So there's some sense of personal accomplishment that you get from working in the industry, irrespective of whether you're the person putting the work in place or you're helping plan it out or manage it. And the other thing is you're able to make a living wage. When you think about the trades, you can make a living wage with no college debt. I mean, that is amazing that you graduate from high school, you apply yourself, you work hard, you persevere, you have some doors opened up for you, and you make a living wage, you have great benefits, you could, and then you're working in an industry, as I said, that you're working in very variety of things. And then it's just, you get this self-satisfaction as a human, when you're working with, the nobility of a trade. I think those things really feed who we are as humans. And again, that's bias, but it truly is my passion. It's why I love the business so much.
Plus, I bet you drive around and you see projects that you actually help build, that you can point to someone, right? And
all the
say,
time, yes. I was telling the young people I was riding around with on job sites today how many jobs we did in that community, and they were amazed. So yes, I do that all the time.
Wow. So what would you say, the wage is one of the reasons why we try to push people to consider the trades, because people say often now it's the fastest route to the middle class because you can make such a good wage so quickly if you apply yourself, right? And I imagine, regardless of what has happened in the economy, even recently, the construction trades are booming still because a lot is going on here in Central Ohio.
Yeah, so construction did not slow down through the pandemic. In fact, we were considered one of the essential work areas in the economy. And so we were able to stay busy. I commend every construction worker out there because, we all face the challenges of the pandemic, and the construction industry as a whole just kind of stood up to the challenge. We adapted to whatever safety precautions we had to handle through the pandemic, and kept plugging away. And every single one of the people that I ran into and the workers, that the CK team members that were out there, I thanked them for it. But yes, through the pandemic, we actually continued all the way through. There was a little, pause when it first hit, because a global pandemic hadn't hit for over 100 years. So all of us as humans didn't know what was going to happen. But, very quickly, we got into solution mode, and, safety is paramount in construction. So the concept of coming up with safe processes was easy for our industry, just like the healthcare industry. It's something that we practice every single day. So, we follow the rules, we innovate, we find ways to be creative, and, very quickly made sure that there was precautions in place so that the team members could work safely, and our trade partners, their folks could work safely. And, our sites, ran, very effectively, irrespective of the challenges associated with the pandemic. And, I commend the entire industry, because I talk to my peers all the time, and we share best practices, and we were sharing best practices back and forth. And I would say across the board, those top tier companies did whatever it took to keep the workers safe, and the workers did whatever they could to keep the projects going.
Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic. Because you're right, the pandemic only happens, hopefully it only happens once every 100 years.
Right. So, I'm done with it. So hopefully
So what do you, when you're looking forward as the president of CORNA KOKOSING, what do you think the future is looking like here in Central Ohio, as far as, more projects, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, we are lucky to have leadership in Central Ohio that we do, and even in the state of Ohio. But in Central Ohio, we're still, they're planning on, Columbus doubling its population, and that trajectory doesn't seem to be slowing down. And then the institutions that call Columbus home, or Central Ohio home, all institutions that are very progressive. They're trying to find ways to innovate and become the best in the world. And you see that every single time, and they're expanding, at a rapid pace. So we're looking at increasing population to support those institutions that are continuing to expand, and the other institutions that are relocating here. All of that means not just new buildings, repurposing buildings, and renovations. And, as the economy changes and certain markets dip, other markets are picking back up, and, it's creating new opportunities for us. So yes, we see, just like Columbus is growing, we see our industry growing. Now, all the thinkers are out there that says the future is going to be determined by who has the people. So, the intellectual capital, people capital is right there with that. So, you need people to want to come to work for your company, and then you have to really figure out, then how do we inspire people to work for us and not someone else, or come to our industry and not another industry. So, we're concerned about the shortage of workers, to be honest with you. That's a big concern. Our concern is more of, not the skill of the worker, but, the worker that's willing to come to the industry, because we could teach them the skill. I think to me, that's the most important thing, is having people that want to be in the industry, or inspire them to be in the industry, and then figure out then how do we sharpen their saw, and how do they sharpen our saw, so that we can be a better company.
And that's really important, right? Is being a company and employer of choice in such a hot market. So what are some of the things that you think drives CORNA KOKOSING's culture such that it's a place where people should want to work?
Well, good. So, we have 3 strategic priorities. One of them is to have a culture of learning, development, and leadership. So when you think about that with people, our people pillar, we want people to learn, we want them to develop, and we want them to become leaders. So, we are a byproduct of what we do is construction. The primary thing that we're doing is building people, because without people, we can't satisfy and serve our customers because we're a service industry. So the foundation of all we do is surrounding people. We won't be safe if we don't have people that are willing to work safely. So the foundation of what we're going to build our company on is team members that want to contribute. So inspiring them, to be part of a special team, and then creating an environment of learning, development, and leadership will, make us a top employer of choice.
So what do you think, you chaired our youth committee here for the last couple of years, which has been fantastic. And so, you've been part of a lot of these conversations. So what do you think we should be doing, and when should we start getting young people interested in doing this kind of work and in considering the trades? I think probably high school might be getting too late. Not that it is too late, but what do you think we should be doing?
I love history, and I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm constantly studying, trying to figure out, what can I do better? And on a journey of trying to figure out what we could do to be better. I did all this research on what's done in Europe, and what they do is they start a lot younger in Europe than we do here in the States. And I think that's important. I think we have to, help these young people, understand the opportunity that's in the construction trades. It's, there for a long time, the trades were looked down upon. And I purposely used the word nobility of a trade because it is noble. There is, as a human, a sense of accomplishment when you could actually put something together yourself. We all see that when we put, a piece of furniture together that needs to be put together, or we put a swing set together, or a barbecue grill. When we're done, we have this huge sense of satisfaction, irrespective of what mistakes we make, right? We still feel that sense of satisfaction. So as a human, we really love to be able to put things together and know that we did it with our own hands. So that same emotion that we feel when we do that, we have to try to transfer that on to these young people so that they can be inspired to be in the industry. And I think it's, if I would guess, I would say, we should start talking in the 4th and 5th grade. So by the time 6th grade comes, they're already thinking we're going to go to a junior high school that's going to help support my career path to go into some, vocation. But that's, there's no science behind that. That's very subjective. That's Jimmy's perspective. But I would think that, that's the time when we should be, out there. And that's a very difficult task, what I just described. But I do think that that's the right time. We got to get into elementary schools because, I'd love for us to have junior high schools that are feeding these vocational programs.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you that in Germany is the example of how they take kids through school and help them to understand themselves, their aptitudes, right? And what they like to do, and help, put them in towards apprenticeships and a variety of things. And I've wanted to see us try to bring that to the United States, and it's just hard to get people.
I was an apprentice to a very highly skilled carpenter, and I remember, he and I rebuilt. We took a staircase out of a church in Brooklyn and we put it in a house in Long Island, and I'll never forget that experience. I mean, it seemed like we spent a few months doing it. We're putting it all back together and making new pieces of trim, and it's something that I'll never forget, ever. I mean, I'll never forget that experience. And working with a highly skilled person was something that taught me so much. So yes, I think that to me is so important, is try to inspire these young people, because, once you get in, you don't want to get out.
Well, that kind of passion is inspiring right there, Jim. So I think about the beauty of apprenticeship, right, is that people are learning and getting paid while they learn. And, we are always talking to other types of jobs and explaining, look, this is how apprenticeship works in the trades. Why can't we make it work in other places? And it's such a challenge, you know, that's something that I think we got to figure out.
Yeah. So, one of the things, I don't think I answered the question completely directly, was about what we're doing on the youth committee and the workforce development board. And I would have to say, I would say they're so nimble in trying to adapt to the conditions that are out in the marketplace so that they can train youth, at a rapid pace that applies to the needs today. So I would say workforce development team is incredibly skilled at trying to adapt to create programs and align partners so that we can train these young people in real time so that they could use that training and apply it to job opportunities right away. So that, to me, is a skill that you don't see very often. So that, to finish that one statement, I think that would be the thing that I've noticed the most, is the flexibility, adaptability, pliability to real-time needs, and then creating those alignments with partners so that you're taking, the industries that need the help, the workers that need the skills developed, and then making that alignment and then providing the training. So that's the short answer of what I've seen happen in the last few years.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you understanding. Yeah. And it's hard work, right?
And as you know, after I'm becoming vice chair, but I also said I still want to be on the youth committee, right? And,
yes,
and that story, right? That story will come out more as we talk today. But helping youth out is very important to me, and I think that I could add some value to it. And again, it's not my story, but it's the things that I did to follow that got me to where I am. So.
Well, and so that was a question that I was about to ask you too, is why you choose to stay serving on the workforce board. And I mean, and you aren't just serving, right? You are really having a lot of commitment in being a chair, and now moving to vice chair, and eventually you'll chair the board. So why do you make that commitment?
Yeah, good choice. So, it's hard. People look at me and of course they think, oh, successful businessman, and they put me in a box. They hear my accent, my tone, my inflection. They're already stereotype me. But the reality of it is I'm just an inner city kid that made it out. Right. And I made it out for a lot of reasons. Okay. And there were opportunities given to me, and there were opportunities that weren't given to me. So I think that anyone that has gone down a path has an obligation to help those that may follow that same path. It really is something I learned the hard way, where people climb the ladder and then they kick the ladder down. You hear that kind of metaphor. I will never do that. I want to help anyone or inspire anyone or provide insight to anyone that wants to try to help themselves. So one is you need someone that wants to help themselves. That's number one. And then, they need to be inspired. And I feel, I've been very successful. I'm a blessed guy. I'm in a really prominent position. I'm involved in the community, but all of that doesn't mean anything if you don't give back. And I don't have a choice, Lisa. I don't have a choice. I feel a burning desire to make sure that I give back so that whenever I'm done and I check out, I know that I gave it my all, not just on my business. I gave it my all to help anyone I could. And that is probably because not everyone was there to help me. Not everyone was willing to help me. I joke and say I don't think I'd hire the 17-year-old Jimmy Negron. I probably wouldn't. But, can I inspire that 17-year-old Jimmy Negron? I think I can, so that he could then say, okay, look, how do I apply myself differently? How do I do something differently? So, that's why I do it. I do it because one is I don't think I have a choice, because I've gone down this path and I'll never forget where I came from. And then I also have an obligation as a human to try to inspire others to do the same. So that's the God's honest truth.
That's wonderful. That's why we're so glad to have you on the board. Something you said a little bit earlier, you talked about getting the opportunity to work with a skilled carpenter and how you'll never forget that. And that points to mentorship. I assume that this person mentored you in a lot of ways, even if you only worked, I don't know, did you only work on that project or if you were able to work on several, but I think that points to why mentorship is so important for these young people and in providing them inspiration. It sounds like you had that.
Yeah, and several times over. I mean, one time, I'll tell you a really quick story since I'm a good storyteller. So the guy that I was working for in Lower Manhattan, he bought a house on Fire Island, and the house was destroyed by Hurricane Gloria. So if you want to look back in history, what year that was, I don't remember. I want to say it's 1985, but I could be wrong. And I spent an entire summer rebuilding that house with me and a guy that was, he built high rises in Thailand. So just think about that. Me and this guy lived together for 4 or 5 months. Every single day we were together, 6 days a week. You know, we woke up, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You want to talk about an apprenticeship. And it wasn't just rebuilding this house. I learned so much from a skill set standpoint because it's an island. You know, it's a couple hours from where I lived in the city, and there was a half-hour boat ride. So I was, you know, for me, a city boy, I was out in the boondocks, you know. So,
Right.
you know, so that's another experience where I spent an entire summer with this guy doing anything from rebuilding foundations, you know, putting roofs on, finished carpentry, you know, and we had to make our own moldings. I mean, all these things that I remembered, and I still remember today. So you're right. It wasn't just one opportunity and one apprenticeship or one mentorship. I had those happen, you know, over and over and over again. And what it did was it provided me such a broad perspective on our industry. And, you know, I knock on wood, I don't know many people that have had the same experiences that I had because of those people that took time to mentor and train me. And I still apply some of those lessons today. Still today, I apply, you know?
Yes.
But yes, it is. If we don't have that, then it doesn't happen. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today without those things that happened to me yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, good mentors and people who take you under their wing and teach you. I can name some of my own.
Some of it was tough love too.
Well, yeah. That's just as important. Which leads me to something we were talking about before we started, right? It's more than just learning the hand skills, right? It's also learning the soft skills, right? And we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, I would say that the last 20 years, I spent most of my time becoming a student of soft skills, of human interaction and human communication, understanding things differently from a very different perspective. And I don't think that I'm a great communicator. I try every day to be better. You know, I tell everybody that in construction, we always look at what's wrong with something and not what's right. So sometimes we come off negative because we're always trying to find what's wrong with something. And you have to be really aware of that. And then I'm in Central Ohio, so I have this New York accent that's a tone and inflection that offends some Midwesterners, you know, so I got to be careful with that. So yes, I spent a lot of time learning about someone else's challenges and my challenges, right? I got to learn about what my weaknesses are also, and I'm aware of them and I'm not afraid of them. And the one thing that I'm really, really proud of, because I come from a diverse family, like 2019, I read a lot of books on the plight that women have, you know, and how the world is set up for men to be successful and women not to be as successful. And, you know, and then that prepared me so much to have, you know, 42% of our engineers being young women, because as I'm interacting and dealing with them, you know, I understand some of the things that they struggle with, and I understand how I contribute to that struggle. And then we're able to kind of work through things in a really healthy atmosphere. And, you know, that applies. So this concept of, you know, really being a student of human communication and dynamics and what my own weaknesses are and what your weaknesses are, and how do I properly interact and communicate with Lisa and vice versa, that's helped me become such a better person. But it also has enriched my life. I mean, I have so many more authentic discussions with people because I don't have the shame and the fear of things that don't work out, and I'm able to overcome any challenge much more rapidly. And I I would say I wish schools taught more about this soft skill aspect of it. I wish schools, not just higher education. I wish high schools and even junior high schools did so. I think we can never stop teaching, and we can never do enough to teach the issues with communication. Every organization struggles with it, and we as humans struggle with it. I struggle with it, and it's something that, for the rest of my life, I'll continue to try to sharpen that saw. So anyway, long answer. Sorry.
No, because it's so important. Because you yourself said it's a very diverse workforce, and if you aren't aware of yourself, how you interact, willing to try to understand other people and how they interact, you're not going to be able to get along. And and appreciate the diversity, because I think we may have said this before we started talking, being recorded. That diversity creates a tapestry that makes us all stronger, right?
Yes.
So I totally agree.
One of the things that was really interesting as I was reading all those books about the plight that women have in the business world, it also, brought to the surface the importance of making sure that when we're in a room, we have a very diverse group of people. And I can tell you, I really want a woman in the room when we're making a really big decision. And it's, to me, I look at everyone as professionals who happen to be a woman, or who happens to be a Latino or an African-American. I don't look at you as first on, the secondary, the primary, you're a professional. But we all think differently, and you want people that think differently. If you're all monolithic, if you got a bunch of engineers in the room, guess what? They're all going to come up with the same solution. You don't want that. Yes, you want the engineers to be part of the solution, but you want a very diverse group of people looking at, okay, this is the problem. How do we solve it? And we all know this is fact. This is science. The person in the room that has the highest IQ is not smarter than the group's IQ. The group's IQ is higher. That's a fact. So there's something that happens when humans come together to look at a problem and come up with a complex solution to a really challenging problem. And it's so daggone rewarding when we do so. So to me, diversity just doesn't make it stronger. It makes us better.
Great. I agree. I completely agree. And you can see that. My own staff, we all come from different backgrounds, different lived experiences. And I think that's how, you're able to get ideas that are bigger than anyone could have thought of on their own, right?
Right.
So, okay, well, we're nearing our time, although I could do this for another hour. So, I told you I would ask you this question. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self about your career? What advice would you give looking back? Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now, I would say the thing that I would tell the 18-year-old Jimmy Negron is, to me, attitude is everything. So I think it's important for a young person to understand that, when you come and you approach something, you don't know everything, being humble, being open, being a sponge, and your willingness to learn the technical skills are so important. But then also your willingness to learn the soft skills are just as important. I of course, my success came from my technical skills and how I was able to apply them because of my mechanical mind. But the soft skills aspect, could have stunted my growth if I didn't develop those fairly quickly. And I think, being open, being humble, not, you don't know everything, but, really being open to understanding, as humans, I can care less what generation you're part of, all this generational stuff. I do agree with it. I do think that the generations do change, but the reality is humans still need to interact on a very intimate level. And the only way we interact on an intimate level is with connection. And the only way you get connection is if you're open and you listen and you're pliable and you apply that to, the lessons learned. So this development of my soft skills is what I would tell the younger Jimmy, is really understand the importance of those soft skill developments, being open and not, closed-minded, and don't think like, well, I'm a good communicator, I'm going to be able to do that. And so that's what I think I would tell myself right now. And then, dream big. People discount the concept of big dreams and writing them down, and you shouldn't do that because, I personally think no matter who you are, I think the human mind is so daggone powerful that any one of us can accomplish anything if we put our mind to it. And what happens is we ourselves limit what we could do by not thinking big. I can't do that. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, that's not the way I was brought up. Oh, I didn't. This obstacle was in my life, so I don't know any better. But you gotta think big, and if you could think big and then start to work at it, I think a lot more of us would get a lot further. I can tell you, Lisa, I work with a lot of young people, and people talk about, oh, this generation. I'm inspired by these young people. I think these bright minds are better than our generation was any day. And if we continue to inspire them and help them develop those hard and soft skills, they'll be much better people and better professionals than ourselves. And to me, that's what I would tell them. Sorry for the long answer there, but I would really try to tell them what to do and then inspire them to do more than anything that they think, because I think they're more capable than us, because I think the generation today is much more empathetic about the world we live in than we were. When I grew up in New York, I remember how polluted the world was. I remember we used to throw rocks in the finger off the Hudson Bay, and the rocks used to sink into the oil. Now we're much more sensitive to our environment for which we live in. We're much more sensitive about just the physical environment, also the social environment that we're in. So I think the social and climate conscious that exists today is so much better than it did yesterday. And this world, can and will be a better place if we can inspire these young people to do anything they could be and then become the leaders that's inside of them. And then from my perspective, they'll do it at a faster pace than us and have a greater impact than we had. So that's the long answer.
I think we need to get you in front of these young people. That's what I think we need to do.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think that is spot on, Jim, that there's a lot of hope. A lot of people have been looking around this last year and a lot of things going on and saying, oh, the world's coming to an end. It's not coming to an end.
No.
These young people give me a lot of hope that they're going to build and better than, you're right, what we
just think about what 2020 did. You think about 2020, right? You look at what 2020, you think about 2020 vision, brings clarity, right? Well, 2020 brought clarity. Just think about all of the junk you eliminated from your life, an entire year of junk, right? Now,
Yes.
So now, are you going to continue to incorporate that stuff that is really not necessary in your life, or you're going to find an effective way to use that time that you were doing things that really didn't add value to what you were doing? That's the question. So 2020 provided us an opportunity to have better clarity. Are we mature enough and strong enough to follow through? Are we going to sink back into the way we did yesterday? So to me, the people that sink back into the way they did business yesterday, the inevitable is failure, okay? Those that take the lessons learned and say, okay, we're not going to do that. We don't need to waste our money on this. We don't need to waste our time on that. We're going to do this differently. I think those people that are going to be able to do that will be much more successful. Human capital is think about the future. The future is human capital. So where we're going to spend our time, the most valuable asset we have is our time, and our people are the ones with the time. So to me, that's what 2020 brought us, is an opportunity to reflect on what we shouldn't be doing and then figure out, okay, now what should we be doing? And then use that time. Yeah, right. So that's what, so as bad as the pandemic was, it was, to me, I'm an opportunist. I think I look at the good at things, and I think that's what the pandemic did for us. It brought us some clarity on what we should and shouldn't be doing.
And now we have the opportunity to act on it. Absolutely. And that takes courage,
Right.
focus, and leadership. And I know that you're bringing that to CORNA KOKOSING for sure. And I know you're going to bring that to our board as well. So
Yes.
I appreciate it. Well, is there anything else you want to add that I should have asked you about that I did not? This has just been a great conversation.
It was a great conversation. I think we talked about a little bit more than what we have wanted to, but hopefully it was good. I mean, I just think that, I'm so excited about what the Workforce Development Board is doing. And just like the Youth Committee, it's not just the Youth Committee that's nimble. We're constantly trying to find ways to add value to the community, whether it's the community in the business world or whether it's those that are seeking work or seeking training. So, we're constantly our fingers on the pulse of what's happening. We're adaptable. We're creating strategic partnerships with other institutions where we could, all learn from and continue to, add value to our community. So to me, as we continue to adapt to it, that's exciting. And, getting others involved in what we're doing, I think is really important. Hopefully not just young people that want to be trained, hopefully businesses realize the importance of strategic partnerships with us. I think the more industry leaders we get involved, the better we'll be as a board and the better the training will be. So to me, it's a really plus. Again, the future is going to be dependent on who has human capital. And time is the most valuable asset that we have as humans. Mm-hmm. So, you put all those things together and training and development is a never-ending thing. Technology is changing our world and humans are going to need to adapt to that. And the only way they're going to adapt is with training and development.
Wow. Well, Jim, thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I think this is going to be one of the most watched interviews we've done. So thank you.
Hopefully so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure. Okay.